Hello, beautiful unicorns. How you ladies doing today on this magnificent Thursday? Lots of snow happening outside. Hopefully the school buses are not canceled, so I don't have to pick up the kids today. But if I do, it is what it is. Yana Kasperczak, your spiritual awakening core energy coach. And my soul's purpose is to help you get your shit together, which will allow you to break free from that mental prison that you find yourself in and live the life that is fulfilling, you love, and proud to wake up to, and excited to wake up to every single day. And to help you do that, and much more, the topic that I have for you today is 11 powerful reasons why you are not living a fulfilling life, and 11 steps on how you actually can cultivate a fulfilling life. Let's all take a nice deep breath to start off, because this topic is a heavy one for a lot of us. And I say that because a lot of us feel unfulfilled in our lives, whether we feel unfulfilled every single day, day in, day out, for months and years at this point, or once in a while you get that old self back that lived a life that wasn't fulfilling. So which means that once in a while you go through these stages, because life is a roller coaster ride, where you find yourself in the low and feeling a lot of different things, and one of them being unfulfilled. So let's start off talking about, do you know who you are at your core? Do you know who you truly and authentically are? Most people will be honest and say that they do not know who they are at their core, but they're figuring it out. Whereas there are some people that will say, I know exactly who I am, I know exactly what I want, and yet they're still not fulfilled. Part of the biggest part of fulfillment is understanding yourself at your core, who you are in your heart, who you are as a soul, as a spirit, and as this meat suit that walks around. And when you start to understand that, you will start to understand so many different things. So now let's get in straight to the point, to these 11 powerful reasons why you might not be living a fulfilling life. Number one, there's lack of clarity, which comes from not being clear about the goals you want, or what those goals mean to you, how they're going to show up in your life, or maybe perhaps even not being clear or having clarity with who you are at your core, starting with your values. What are your top 5 values? When was the last time you sat down and you took the time to get very clear and understand what are your top 5 or top 10 values are? And are you living your life by those values? When I sit down and do this work with my clients, more often than not, they don't even know what their values are. And once they uncover what they are, once they take the time to figure out what they are, because there's a difference between your core values and those core values you think are yours that are not actually your values, they're from someone else. But when they take the time to figure out what their values are, it's the word that has been used is that it's scary for them to recognize that they're not living their life to their values. Because when they figure out what their values are, what the values they're carrying are of someone else, that they're not living to their values, they're living to the values of someone else in their life. And sometimes it actually tends to be their parent who is either no longer here, or they're not living with them anymore. But they're still living to somebody else's value, to somebody else's expectations, somebody else's standards. And on top of that, let's bring in, when it comes to clarity, your purpose. Do you know what your purpose is? Why are you here? Why are you here on this planet? Out of all the times that you could have been on this planet, why now? Why today? And that if you're still here, that means you have not served your purpose. Those that have served their purpose, they have parted and they were ready to move on to the next stage of their soul's evolution. Whereas we are all still here. We all have a purpose. And sometimes when we're feeling unfulfilled is because we maybe have forgotten and don't have that clarity on why are we here? What is our purpose? Which the purpose can lead to us, not having that purpose, the lack of clarity on the purpose. It does tend to lead to a lack and sense of emptiness inside of you, where you're feeling, why am I here? Why am I wasting my time and energy? Is this all that life is? Is this all that life is about? And not feeling the love for yourself. So the second powerful reason is, and this one is for a lot of us, is fear of failure. Fearing that no matter what it is that we're doing, that we're failing at it somehow or on some level, which often does go to unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves or that somebody else has put on us. And we took it in as this is the truth and this is what our expectation is. And we live our life in that way, and it feels like we can never fill that expectation. And that is, in a way, the reality and the truth, because you're not meant to fill somebody else's expectations of you. You're meant to figure out what your own expectations are of you, and then live up to your own expectations in the ways that you want, and recognize that just because you set a bar for your expectation right here does not mean you gotta stay there. You might bring it higher, or you might end up lowering because you realize this is not how you want to live your life. And it does go back to knowing who you are at your core. So fear can paralyze you, and it often does paralyze you, paralyzes me, it paralyzes all of us. That's what fear does, fight or flight. Part of that is that fear, and which prevents you from taking risks and prevents you from following or pursuing or chasing your passions. It keeps you staying small and playing small because part of you somehow, which is a deep program that most of us have received, believes that you are not worthy of it, that you don't deserve that you can't have it, that it's not for you, it's for somebody else. It's reserved for the few, but not for you. Which, why can't you be the few? And then as you are the few, you can help everybody else to understand that they too can have this thing that they want. When you shine your light brightly, unapologetically, and authentically, you are actually helping and allowing other people in your life to do that same thing. You are a constant reminder for other people to do that thing for themselves, which in return, as they're doing it for themselves, that it also ripple effect is for other people around them. And that is where we can also have that sense of fulfillment back in our life. Let me open up my video. Good morning, Debbie. Good morning, Peggy. How are you ladies doing today? Because I don't see the comments on my phone. That's why I want to make sure that I open on my computer and that I see them on there. So the third one, the reason why, the very powerful reason, and this one you're all familiar with, why you might not be living a fulfilling life is maybe there's too much comparison happening in your life, in your either day or day to day, because this is another program that we have all received. Comparison itself is not a bad thing. It's actually, if done right, it is very healthy and it is necessary for growth and survival and evolution. But most of the time, for many of us, we have been taught to compare in negative ways. In ways like, oh, she has that and I don't. I can never be that way. Or I can never have that. Just to name a few. And I'd love to hear from you all. What are some unhealthy comparisons that you have experienced in your own life? Whether it came from you, from within, or from somebody else and you were the recipient of that negative comparison. And also when you were a kid, oh, your sister did that or your brother did that, and why can't you be more like her or him? Why can't you do that? What about you? Right? And right away it causes a person to go into their shell like a turtle and hide and say, well, no, or to fight. And in a way we've been taught to be pinned against one another, especially as women. Men are competitive by nature, whereas for women, there's also a lot of emotion that's in there. And throughout my life, I have noticed and been the recipient of attacks in a way where somebody tried to be like me and they couldn't, and they would put me down because somehow it was my fault, because they couldn't meet their own expectation, and somebody needed to be blamed, somebody needed to be the punching bag for that. And that was me. If I was the one that started it in a way, which I wasn't the one that started it, because it started in their own mind, that I needed to be punished for that. So comparison, constantly comparing yourself to others, causes that internal dissatisfaction, and it often, it often hinders or stops our growth, where we don't even want to show up, we don't want to do anything. So all of a sudden we feel completely lost, confused, and unfulfilled, and why bother? Right? I can never be as good as her, so why do I even bother? Let her go and pave the path and do what she's doing, and I'm not even gonna try because I can't even compete. That's comparison in there as well. That is very, very draining, and yeah, draining is the only word that comes to mind. So the fourth one of the powerful reasons why you might not be living a fulfilling life is taking a look at your relationships that you have in your life. Are they healthy? Can you list the healthy relationships that you have in your life? And can you list the unhealthy relationships in your life? And on top of that, let's go in deeper and see what are you getting from each and every one of this healthy relationship? What's in it for you? And what are you getting from all the unhealthy relationships in your life? What's in it for you, or what's in it for them? What is your experience? How do you feel when you are done interacting in this relationship? Is it gaining or is it draining? Because toxic relationships can and often do drain your energy and take away from your sense of fulfillment, from you feeling whole and fulfilled in yourself and in your own personal life. So checking those out. And just because this relationship is not healthy does not mean that it's doomed to fail, that it can't be fixed and nothing can be done with it, that's it, we're done, it's over with. Absolutely not. How did you, and this is the question that a lot of us don't want to ask ourselves, but how did you contribute yourself as who you are? How might have you contributed to this relationship being unhealthy? One of the ways of looking at it is, what were the things that you allowed to take place in that relationship that you shouldn't have? What boundaries did you allow to have crossed, or what boundaries did you cross? You can't just blame the shame on shift the blame on the other person. You got to take ownership of things. And when you start taking ownership of your own things, that's when your life starts to come together. That's what it means to, you know, get your shit together. Is you stop shifting blame on everyone else and seeing what's wrong with everything and everyone else, but you start taking ownership. That's how you get your shit together. You own all these things and see what you can do. How did you contribute to that? How can you fix and resolve things? Maybe just an apology might be great, or maybe clarifying those boundaries that were crossed. Mending things. Just because the relationship is an unhealthy one right now does not mean it will stay that way. More often than not, actually, those become the best relationships you could ever have. And I kid you not. Because you have seen the worst of that person and they have too, and you still come back together, and from that point on the relationship can be absolutely magical, because they have seen you at your worst and at your best. They know who you are or who you could be, and you have the same experience of them. There's no more hiding. You can be your true authentic self. So don't scrap these relationships as that's it, it's done, it's over with. What can you do about it? And then of course there are some that there's nothing you can do about it, and just move on and start healing from that. It all depends. You got to do the digging, and if you want to go in deeper and do, maybe take up, hire a coach, whether it's myself or somebody else that you know, then go ahead and do that to help you in not only in the relationships but in your life in general. The fifth one is maybe you're in a state of your life where you are stagnant. And I will say this for myself, this is where quite a lot of my unfulfillment comes through, when I'm doing the same things over and over again and there's nothing exciting, no change, and I feel like it's just nothing is happening, or I find myself being resistant to change, not wanting to change, not wanting to try something different, something new, because comfort has taken place and I feel good and comfortable with having routines and certain habits that I become aware of how else I can evolve, and I catch myself being resistant to it. So resistance to change and staying within your comfort zone can lead to stagnation. Check that one out. I know for me it's definitely that one. Comparison is also another one that I catch myself once in a while. And in a negative way, I catch myself, and that what drains me. But most of the time when I compare in a healthy way, and there's no negative judgment, whether of myself or of the other person, and I compare in a way of, ooh, what can I learn from that? What can I bring into my life from that? And then start doing that. And if I don't do anything about it, I just have the realization, this is where the stagnation comes in. Because these all interplay within one another as well. It's often not just one thing, it's more than one. The next one is, and this one, I know we're all really, really, really good at this one. Negative self-talk. How many of you catch yourself on a daily basis having some kind of a negative thought or conversation with yourself? Put your hand up. I'll put two of my hands up, because I catch myself, even as a core energy coach who polices my clients' language and helps them to get rid of their negativity, I still catch it in myself. And honestly, it does come from the things that I expose myself to, even through the coaching conversations, as I'm hearing other people's language. It seeps through into me, and some of that can stay with me. So it's not just my own language, it's other people's languages. And this is the challenging part of being a coach, that as I'm helping others, some of that rubs off on me and can stay with me. So it's then up to me to do the work that helps me to not allow any of that to stay with me. And sometimes it's challenging because certain things that women that I'm working with are going through and the language they use, it is so powerful, and some of that might connect with me at a deeper level, and it's almost like I can't help but have those words and those thoughts replay in my own record, in my own mind. And this is where if I don't do anything about it, it'll stay there. But in order for me to change that, I got to change that record. I got to understand why it's replaying, because it's not just about them. Now it's about me. There's something within me that it's resonating with. And it's like almost like one of my buttons got pushed, and I will not get past it until I go within and uncover it and understand what that is. And when I do that, that is when I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now what? So negative self-talk, constant self-criticism, and negative mindset can hinder progress and hinders fulfillment as well. Number 7, I already talked about expectations, but now let's talk about unrealistic expectations. Meaning that when we set certain kind of expectations or certain kind of a bar, a standard for ourselves or for other people in our life, because somehow we feel responsible that we got to do things for others, especially as women, as caregivers. Part of who we are as a caregiver is helping others, and in a way we set expectations of what we want from everyone in our life, trying to help them, but in the end, it doesn't help them, and it definitely does not help us. So when it comes to setting expectations or setting certain standards, you got to do that for yourself and recognize when you're trying to invade somebody else's existence, and that's not yours. They're their own person, and they can figure their things out on their own, and if they need your help, they'll come and ask for your help. Don't what's the word? I can't think of a word. Invade them, or doesn't matter what the word is. It's like when you're in a relationship with somebody else comes in and tries to just to help out, and they're the ones that end up getting bitten. So don't do that. So setting unattainable standards may result in perpetual dissatisfaction. So those of you who are entrepreneurial and you have a goal of reaching a certain income or certain amount of people that you want to, like the numbers that you want to work with, the amount of people that you want, it can be unrealistic. You know, there's this whole 10x your goals, and you set this goal that 10x, that you go from having 5 one-on-one clients to now you want to have 50 one-on-one clients. And can you imagine having 50 one-on-one coaching clients where you are with them one-on-one for anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour every single week, 50 one-on-one clients? How satisfied are you going to feel? How fulfilled are you going to feel after these 50 one-on-one clients? I'll tell you that you won't. You will feel tired, drained, and exhausted, and you won't even know what's your mind and what's everybody else's mind, because you've had 50 women, if you're coaching women, and their words and their thoughts in your mind spiraling you out of control. So setting realistic expectations and realistic standards and realistic values as well for yourself is going to be key. Which the word focus comes to mind. That how focused can you be when you're working with 50 women, and how present can you be with those 50 women versus 5 women? So the goal there might be instead of having 50 women at this price point, you can have 5 women at this price point and still earn the same income, because you're going to be that much more available to each and every one of them versus 50 women and you spread yourself so thin that you're not going to be mentally available for all these women to help them out. So number 8 is neglecting personal development. When you're not spending time on yourself, personal growth and personal development, when you're not spending time on yourself, for yourself, every single day, not talking about spending hours for yourself every single day. You can spend 5 minutes for your personal growth and development and do something, and you're going to feel fulfilled, which means, what are you learning every single day? Because that's what personal development, personal growth means. Personal development is you're learning something, and personal growth means that you are applying what you've learned. And you got to do both every single day. And if you're not learning and you're not applying, you're not growing. You're going to feel stagnant. You're going to feel unfulfilled. You're going to start to feel like a failure and go back to your old ways. So neglecting your personal development, failing to invest in your growth can lead to a lack of fulfillment. When you're not investing in yourself, and investment is not just money. More often than not, that investment is time. And that's something that I know each and every one of you, just like myself, struggles with. I don't have time for this because, and here comes all of the reasons, which are, if we really start digging deep, we recognize that they're not exactly reasons. Most of them are going to be excuses. Why we don't have time to do this, why we don't have time to do that, why we don't have time to do that. It really comes down to, I don't feel like it, because that is the truth that is beneath all of the reasons and excuses. I don't feel like doing that because I'm not ready, or I don't feel like I'm worthy, or I'm terrified of doing this work because I know when I say yes to this opportunity, to this program or this course or these lessons, that I'm going to become someone different, and I'm scared of who that different person is. But that's going to be a better and more evolved version of yourself that you don't know yet, and it does come through as fear. And the excuses are, I don't have time for this, I'm not ready, not yet, we'll do it later, it's not the right time, or even I don't have money. Yes, with money, especially in the economy that we're living right now, often it is the truth, but in reality, if you really, really, really wanted something, if you really wanted, let's say, this crystal, right? And because it spoke to you, and it had a powerful meaning to you like it did to me. To me, this represents miscarriage, this angel, with a hole in her belly. That even if this cost me $30, I would find the money for it. And I would spend the money for this because the meaning and its value for me is worth it. So if you don't find the meaning and the value of what you are wanting to say yes to, then you're not going to do it. And no one can convince you, only yourself. Nor would you want anyone to convince you, because that means that they will have to continue to convince you after you have said yes to it. They'll have to continue to convince you to show up for it. So it needs to come from within. Number 9 is being too focused on material success, on materialistic things, acquiring things. Prioritizing material wealth without considering personal satisfaction can lead to emptiness. Many of us believe, and if you go down our lineage, it comes from having very little to now having a world that is abundant of things, and we can acquire a lot of things. That I'll use the same crystal as an example, that I believe that I will be happy when I get this crystal and I have this in my house. I'll be happy when I get this candle and have it in my office and burn it. I'll be happy when I get this wild rose bath salt and I can smell it. Oh, it smells amazing. I can smell it every single day. I'll be happy when, and this I'll be happy when syndrome that leads us to focus too much on materialistic physical things and objects that we cannot take with us, that when we are gone from here, somebody else takes ownership of those things and objects. But the things that do make us feel happy and good and give us that sense of fulfillment are the things that are inside of us, and all the work that we have done in ourselves and evolved ourselves to a certain being that we want to be, that we have been aspiring to be. It's none of these physical objects, physical things that make us happy. None of these necklaces, none of these rings and jewelry, none of that. Because think about it this way, if the world was blind, how would you impress them? If the world was blind and they didn't see your face, didn't see you wearing the makeup or this necklace or this jewelry or this crystal, if everyone was blind, how would you impress them? Now, number 10, lack of gratitude. We all practice gratitude and we're trying to be thankful and grateful for a lot of things, but there's a difference between thought alone and then thought and feeling involved in being grateful for something. I can sit here and be thankful and grateful for this crystal, but it can be just sheer thought. But when I feel gratitude in my core, in my heart, I feel completely fulfilled and whole, that I don't need anything else. Even think of it this way, if everything in this house was gone and burnt down and I only had this crystal, I could feel grateful for this crystal and nothing else. And I would feel that in my core. Focusing on what's lacking rather than appreciating what you have can diminish fulfillment. Number 11, not prioritizing your own self-care, self-love, and your own well-being. Not doing the things that you know are going to help you to feel good of yourself, for yourself, and take care of yourself. Ignoring either your physical or mental health can negatively impact overall satisfaction. Ignoring yourself, not taking care of yourself, can and often does impact our overall satisfaction and fulfillment. Now let's go into the 11 steps to change all of those things and help you to live a life that is a fulfilling life. Number 1, reflect on those values. As I was talking earlier, understanding what your values are and the values that you believe are yours, are they yours or they're somebody else's. Identify and align your actions with your core values. This is how you can start to create a meaningful life, because when you're in alignment with yourself and with your values, your life starts to align with those values as well, and you start to live that way. So for an example, one of my values used to be, what I believed was, I wanted to live an outdoorsy active life, being outside all the time and climbing, hiking and biking and rollerblading. Yes, at one point that was who I was, that was one of my values, but over my life, my lifetime, it has become, it's not one of my primary values. It used to be, but no longer is. So carrying that, it really just caused me to feel very unhappy and unfulfilled in my life, because I wasn't doing that. I was telling myself that this was my core value, that I wanted to be more active and climb mountains and bike mountains and rollerblade and be outside all the time. But that is no longer who I was, nor no longer who I wanted to be. But by keeping that value, it was really draining me and making me feel horrible and bad. And I recognized that part of that was also social media. That by seeing these things outside on social media, I wanted to do them, but that's not who I was at my core. Not anymore. So understanding that this value was no longer my value, it was somewhere down, maybe like 15th or 20th value, but it wasn't my top 10. And by focusing on that, I was just taking energy out of my life and out of my everyday existence and beating myself up. So understanding that our values change and evolve just like we do. They change and evolve with us. And that if they are not in alignment with who we are now, then we're not going to be living in alignment with, our life is going to feel out of balance and we're not going to feel fulfilled. So clarifying all of those, that's something that I honestly could not do on my own. I had a coach, a couple of coaches to help me through that with my values. It was one coach, and then as I continued to work with different coaches and my values, and I started to change, each coach has helped me realign with, re-identify and realign with those values. And even as a coach myself, I still have coaches to help me with that, because we are one-minded. We can only see things our own way, but by having someone outside of us and asking the questions that are really like deep questions, that only then can we truly start to have honest answers and honest reflections on ourselves, with ourselves, and with our values. Now, number 2, embrace failure as growth. Too often we beat ourselves up for our failure. And when we start to embrace failure as, this is growth, this is me learning how to walk, this is me fumbling and learning how I can overcome this fumbling and then be a stallion, right? Or learn how to walk better or speak better or whatever it is. That viewing our failures as opportunities to learn and grow, what it also does is it teaches us resilience. And remembering and reminding ourselves that success does not exist without failure. In order for us to be successful, we need to experience failure enough times to learn what we want, how we want it, and what success is in relation to failure. In order for us to know what true love is, we need to experience loss and grief and disappointment, and sadness and all those things to help us really understand what love is and what love isn't. Number 3, practice gratitude. Like I was talking about earlier, practicing gratitude, not in a way of just thinking, but feeling grateful in your heart, in your whole being. Where for me, I feel really, really warm, and sometimes I feel so overwhelmed with gratitude that I want to cry, and it feels like pure love. That's what gratitude is. When you're in state of gratitude, emotional state, practice that. Cultivate a habit of appreciating the positive aspects of your daily life and positive aspects of yourself, who you are. Now, number 4 is set realistic goals. Take the time to understand your goal. One goal. Focus on one goal a day. What does that look like? What does that sound like? What does that feel like? Break it down into bite-sized pieces, into more achievable goals, instead of this big one massive goal of, this is how much income I want to earn in a month or in a year. What does that mean? What does that look like to you every day? What are you doing to achieve that? What are you doing every week to achieve that? Break it down into the bites that you can actually eat. It's like your one goal might be, I want to eat this 20-foot pizza. But you know you can't eat that 20-foot pizza in one sitting, in one day. You got to figure out, okay, I will have this much for breakfast, I can have this much for a snack, I can have this much for lunch, I can have this much for another snack, and then for dinner, and then maybe a bedtime snack, right? And then you're going to end up looking like a pizza later on, but that's not your goal, right? Your goal is to eat the pizza. And then the next day, what are you going to do? And then the next day. And then what happens when things get in the way? Meaning that when you no longer want to eat this pizza and you're tired and you're maybe feeling stagnant with this pizza, you're tired of pizza, or you're tired of eating and you want to break, what are you going to do to get yourself back on that horse, to get back to eating that pizza again, to get back to doing that thing that you got to do repetitively every single day or every single week? Because things and life are going to get in the way. So what are you going to do to overcome that, to continue doing that? This was realistic goals. So break down your goals to achievable steps and celebrate progress along the way. Don't forget to celebrate the things that you do achieve and reach. You had that bite of pizza for breakfast, celebrate, cheer yourself. You had it for a snack, celebrate and cheer for that. And continue doing that. Number 5, learn to say no and set limits for yourself and for other people in your life, meaning that you gotta have those healthy boundaries in place. And if you don't have them, put them in place. If you need to have conversation with people again or with yourself again, make sure that's in place. If we are talking, going back to what we were talking about earlier, if you want to achieve a certain income, whether it's for a month or for the year, what are the things that you need to sacrifice or put in place for yourself or for other people in your life to make sure that you reach those goals? Very often, maybe you're spending too much time scrolling, or maybe you're watching too many things that are not adding value to your life. Maybe you're not spending enough time in your personal development and personal growth. Maybe you're trying to go at it alone and you don't have the right support systems in place, right guidance, or right coach in your life to help you get there. What is it that you need to put in place that is going to help you to get to that place that you want to get to achieve those goals that you want in your life? So setting healthy boundaries. Number 6, surround yourself with positivity. Maybe you're spending too much time with negative people, or too much time watching negative things, or listening to negative things, or maybe you're spending too much time in your head and it's negative. Build supportive relationships that encourage personal growth and positivity. Maybe the people that are in your life are not spending any time or very little time developing themselves and becoming a better version of themselves, and you are. And when you spend more time with those people that are not doing that, you'll become more like them. And if you spend more time with people that are doing that, you'll become more like them. So surround yourself with positivity as much as you can. Maybe you wake up in the morning and you're back to your programming and the negativity is replaying, and you struggle to be positive in the morning. So what you can do in that instance is put some bananas in your ears, and meaning your headphones, and listen to something positive, affirmations, maybe meditation, or maybe a podcast, maybe a book, or just a conversation, or something positive that is going to stay with you for the rest of the day. And the more you do that, the more you'll become that. Number 7, whenever you catch those negative thoughts, I want you to challenge them. Maybe you keep track of the negative thoughts that you have throughout the day, and every time you catch yourself in a negative state or negative thinking, you're going to rewrite that. You're going to rewrite it in your own mind, or maybe physically write it down. Maybe have a journal for negative thoughts, and you write down the negative thought that you have, and then on the other side you're going to write down the response of how you would much rather think instead of that thought. Rephrase and rewire yourself and your default program at this point, because it has not been serving you. So rewrite it to the one that is going to be serving you. And the more you do that, the more that you challenge those negative thoughts and you rewrite them, and you end up rewiring yourself to become that person that you want to become. And that is honestly the path of least resistance. By you just taking it out of your head, write it down as if you're having a conversation with someone else, and write a more positive one. But don't lie to yourself. Don't say, I am happy, when you're not happy and you feel like completely miserable. You can write it in the way of, I am becoming a little bit more happier each and every day. I try to avoid using the words try, because it almost feels like I'm trying to but it can cause me to feel like a failure. If that word works for you for now, you can use it, but when you recognize certain words are no longer working for you, and why? Because trying often makes me feel like a failure. So sometimes I'll still use that word, but oftentimes I will not use that word because it makes me feel like I'm trying and I'm failing. So I don't like to use that word. So replace self-defeating thoughts with affirmations and positive self-talk. Number 8, continue to learn something new every single day. Like I was saying earlier, invest in personal development through education, skills enhancement, and new experiences. Go and do something new. Go and get out to, maybe there's a club near you, or events near you that you can attend, and you can not only experience something new, that you can learn something new by going to a new place. We are not going to learn anything new if we're staying in the same place doing the same thing over and over and over again. We're going to learn new things when we do new things, when we experience new things. Number 9, prioritize your self-care and self-love practices. Do those things first thing in the morning, or make sure that you get them done throughout your day. Dedicate time to activities that nourish your physical and your emotional and mental well-being. Put yourself first. If you haven't done so already, make sure you do that. Number 10, mindfulness practices, meaning that you're going to spend some time with yourself, by yourself, and be mindful with what you're doing. Meditation, yoga, staying present in the present moment, becoming aware, taking in all of your surroundings, just taking it all in and feeling and sensing them, maybe smelling them, bringing in some sensory, some smells in there as well. And do the practices that help you to reduce or release stress. Exercise is going to be a great mindfulness practice. Even though it's exercise, it's still a mindfulness practice. And breathing techniques as well, you can do that. And the last one, 11, practice creativity. Be creative. When was the last time you were creative? And what did you do that last time? How did that make you feel? How did that make you feel about you when you were being creative last time? Maybe make a list of all the different ways how you like to be creative, or you practice creativity, or you express creativity, and do that. Engage in creative pursuits to foster self-expression and sense of accomplishment. We all feel great when we do something that comes almost from nowhere, comes from our mind, and our hands get involved, or maybe for you it's speaking. How creative can you be when you self-express yourself? For me, this is one of the ways that I practice creativity, doing these videos. Thursdays, it's Get Your Shit Together with myself, Yana Kasperczak, and on Mondays, I do card reading, where I pull out a card, and there's certain things that I said in there, but I still infuse it with how I interpret it, and how, the thoughts and the words that I feel like I get from nowhere, but they're coming from somewhere, intuitively. And then on Tuesdays, I do the story time on my personal page, where I come up with a thought or a story, and when I say I come up with it, it's more often than not, it's from a coaching conversation that I've had that is a story in somebody else's life. And most of you can relate to that, because we're all human beings, and we all, for example, today with fulfillment, this is something that we all feel once in a while. No matter how fulfilled we feel most of the time, that there's going to be those low times or days, or even sometimes weeks, when we feel unfulfilled. And recognizing why you're feeling that way, after giving you these 11 ways how you can tell that you're not feeling fulfilled, or where it may be coming from, and then what you can do with it. And what I say and suggest is not limited to just those things. You got a lot of experiences as well. So implement what you can gradually. Don't do it all at once, but start with figuring out what might be causing you that sense of unfulfillment right now. And if you didn't watch the whole entire video, you can go back to the beginning and watch the beginning, because guarantee there's going to be much more that you'll learn that I didn't say later on, because I typically try to not repeat myself of what I said in the beginning and what I said in the end, so that way it gives you that time and space to go to the beginning and watch the whole entire video. So let me quickly look through the comments. So this is when I was talking about some comparison, and Debbie said, I'm not as thin or as smart as others. That is thank you. That is actually a really great comparison that so many of us do and have. I'm guilty of that one as well. Whether it's the thin or the smart part, 100%. Old negative thoughts is another one. Yeah, those old negative thoughts that come back almost like to haunt us, but they come back to remind us of who we were and who we no longer are. And then Debbie said, I've separated from toxic relationships after I could not come into balance. Recognizing that the reason why we're out of balance is because of this specific toxic relationship, and you did all you could to try to mend it, but you weren't meant to, at least not in this lifetime. They were just meant to be teachers, very powerful teachers, and you learn to release and let go, so that way you can live a fulfilling and a balanced life. And then Debbie said, learning from healthy comparisons. Yeah, definitely learn from health comparisons. And then Peggy put her hand up when I was asking, put your hand up when, whatever that when was. If you're doing the comparison, I think that's what it was. And then Debbie said, working on my language to myself and out loud. Amazing. Doing that work is not always an easy one. Rebecca is on here. Good morning, Rebecca. She said good morning. And then Rebecca said, for me, I was literally paralyzed by my mental health. I wanted to do the right things, but actually could not move my body. I was struggling with breath, struggling to breathe and eat and sleep. So that sounds like you were going through a period of time when you were suffering, and that experience and those memories and those stories that you were going through and reliving were the most powerful teachers for you, that have not only brought you to where you are now, but to who you are today and who you will continue to become. They are part of you. And I can personally relate to that as well, where I would just sleep throughout the day. There was not even one positive thought that I could have in my mind, and I couldn't even bring myself to rewrite or change the positive way, in a positive way of how I was thinking of myself. And that's why I recommend listening to someone else telling you through affirmations or through mantras of who you are, reminding who you are. And you know who you are when you're feeling triggered by what is being said. You become really emotional of what is being said through the mantras or through the affirmations, because you know this is who you are and you feel it in your core, and it just cracks you wide open. You start to believe, and that is a great way to start rewriting those stories and those messages that you're carrying for yourself. Then Rebecca said, I did not give up. It took years, but I found a way to gain the momentum. The brain fog cleared once I started eating better, eliminating toxic foods. I call it living for tomorrow, not for today. I love that. So checking what you're eating. So the other thing, that's actually a great reminder that the way that you're feeling, the sense of unfulfillment, might actually be coming from the foods that you eat. There was a thought that I had, or a realization that I had, that something along the lines of, I think it's in here. By changing my food, I change my mood. That our food affects our mood. So if we're feeling a sense of unfulfillment, or we're feeling unfulfilled, it might be coming from what we're eating. And if we're eating junk, we're going to feel like junk. If you're changing your nutrition, you're eating healthy, you're going to feel healthy. You can't, if you've ever had pets, If you give your pets crappy food, you're going to see their body change, and you're going to see their mood change as well, and they're going to be more lethargic. Same thing goes for us. There's even a study that I heard, Deepak Chopra was talking about the study, how feeding rabbits carrots, because carrots are considered to be toxic food or not healthy food for the rabbits, even though we always see rabbit with a carrot, right? So there were basically three groups of rabbits that were being fed this toxic food. One, they would feed the rabbit, give the rabbit the food, and they would eat it. And another one, they would just throw it, and there was absolutely no interaction with the rabbit, and they would eat it. And in another group of rabbits where the caretaker would spend time feeding the rabbit, and would pet the rabbit, and they would stroke the rabbit. And the first two groups, they were unhealthy, they were sickly, and because they were actually exerting the, basically showing signs of unhealthiness in many different ways. Whereas this group that was being pet and loved and cared for, that they turned the toxic food into healthy food. So not only is it what we're eating, but also the environment that we're eating has a massive effect on us. So if you are eating at a dinner table and everyone is in a foul mood, whatever it is that you're eating, whether it's healthy or not, it's gonna go into you as toxic food, because there's toxicity around you. If you're watching something on TV and it's negative and it's toxic, you're going to be eating that negativity, that toxicity. So your environment plays a massive role on what you're eating as well. And it can turn toxic food into healthy, nourishing food. Just food for thought. No pun intended, or pun intended. And then, where to go? Rebecca said, I strive to live for today. That's the daily intention, but it's easy to get distracted. 100%. And that's why my favorite reminder and phrase is that how many times do we need to forget in order for us to remember? We have a realization, just like by changing my food, I changed my mood, that in order for me to become a healthy eater, I need to forget. How many times do I need to forget in order for me to remember? Which means that having reminders around me, and the reminders that are not the reminders that are going to become part of like white noise almost. How many of you have, let's say, sticky notes in your kitchen or in your office or in your room that you don't even see anymore, because you've seen them over and over and over again, that it become like normal. You don't even see them anymore. They just kind of blend into the background. How many of you have reminders on your phone that the reminder goes off and you're like, snooze. So having reminders that are intentional. Something like every day as you're journaling, or as you have the plan for the day and you're writing out what you're going to be doing, you got to be intentional with your life. You're going to be intentional with you every day. And if you're not, things are just going to come in and take over your time and your energy and your space. You must be intentional with how you're going to spend your day today, how you're going to spend your day tomorrow, whether it's in your personal life or in your business, so that way nobody else hijacks it. So as you being intentional, this is where you can take the time to write these things, these reminders for yourself. And before you know it, without you putting in much effort, you'll become that way. Like even having I am journal, or writing in that I am journal who you truly are, and doing that every single day, and you will see magic in your life. Rebecca said, I often have tears of joy even for others. That's a powerful one as well. I think it's also vital to be with elements of connect to oneself. Yes. Definitely vital to be with the elements to connect to yourself, with oneself. There was, where did I write it down. I wrote it down this morning because it was something that I heard, and I thought, oh, this is going to be a great reminder that I want to share with all of you guys. Worry, those of you that worry is to torture oneself. That's what worry is. The definition of worry is to torture oneself. And when you have tortured yourself enough, you will find ways to not worry anymore and to just trust the process. So stop torturing yourself. You're worthy of so much more. And I know it's easier said than done, but by simply reminding yourself that no amount of worrying is going to change the situation or anything that you're going through. Action will. Worrying changes nothing. So no amount of worrying is going to change anything. And worrying at its core, the definition of worrying is to torture oneself, to torture yourself. And until you're done torturing yourself and you feel like you are deserving of your true self, you will continue to torture yourself. Because at the core, that means that you believe that you're worthy of this torture, that you deserve this torture, and you continue to torture yourself. And another way to look at worrying is that worrying itself means that you're able to focus on something for a long period of time and just worry about it, and spend so much energy that way. That means that you have a strong ability to focus on something that is important to you. And all you gotta do is just shift focus from negative to positive, because worrying often is because you're worrying about something negative, something that could happen and very rarely does happen. You have this skill of laser focus on whatever it is that is important to you. Shift it to something positive and worry about all the positive things that are going to be happening in your life and what you're going to be doing with yourself and with your time when these good, amazing things happen for you. And then Peggy said, I think that comes from this universal stream of everything. We are tethered to that. Ancestral knowledge, that's the flow. Yeah. It doesn't show me the emoji. The emoji shows OBJ. I'm not sure what that emoji is. Maybe it'll show me on my phone. My computer does not. But everything does come from the universal stream of everything, and we are tethered to that. The universal knowledge, the database of consciousness. We can tap into that. We can get any kind of information that we want, and worrying does actually come from that as well. It's almost like it gets passed on to us from our parents. So the things that you're worrying about as an adult now, how were your parents worrying about the same things at that age in their life that you are worrying about right now in your life? Think about it. There was a realization that I had in having conversation with one lady that was thinking of working with me, and for her, she's been in relationships, and as she would tend to end a relationship at about a year and a half mark, where she could not get past a year and a half in a relationship, that something would just happen, and in a way that was self-sabotage. And I asked her a question of, what happened to you in your life when you were a year and a half? And that's when her parents were going through separation, through divorce, and there was a lot of things happening in her life. And for her, that was a massive realization as to why her own relationships couldn't get past this year and a half mark, because at a year and a half, she learned that this is how long relationships last. And when we start to look through what we were exposed to at a certain age in our life, and how old your parents were, let's say right now, maybe you're 40 years old or 37 years old. What were your parents going through that is similar to what you're going through right now? How were they expressing themselves? What were their mindset? What were they thinking? What was their energetic state or being, that you might be going through the same things? Or were going through the same things at a younger age, and you have learned from that and you have overcome and surpassed. Because we don't stay in that program that our parents were, because once we become awakened and we're awakened to the truth and the realities of where we are, we start to change and evolve, become a better version of ourselves, and we'll grow beyond what our parents did as well. And then Peggy said, nature has been my biggest healer. Yeah, nature is the most powerful healer, which is a reminder for me to maybe do peek my nose outside and see how cold it is out there and step in that snow, because I haven't put my feet in the snow this year yet. It hasn't been much of it. We just had snow on Tuesday, quite a bit of snowfall, and then today there's snow falling as well. So I'll go check it out. So thank you for that reminder, Peggy. Grounding a little bit. And then Peggy said, yes, shift your focus. Yeah, shift your focus from many different things. Whether you're happy or you're unhappy, and then shift it to happiness. Shift it from who you're being right now to who you truly are. Shift it from, what else were we talking about? From worry to, worrying about negative things, and worry about positive things instead. It's easier to worry about negative things because this is what we're used to. And when you start worrying about positive things, start worrying about, if you had $1 million right now, what would you do with it? Worry about that. What would you invest in? Do you know what you would invest in? Who would you invest in? What would you do with that? How would you spend that money? Worry about that. When you start worrying about those positive things, because those are the things that rich people worry about, they're nervous about that. But what would your worries be when you had $1 million? And a lot of us actually don't even realize that if we really paid attention and look around, that most of us have already earned more than $1 million in our lifetime. We just might not have the things that we want to show for it. Peggy said, you had been talking about finding words and not knowing where they were coming from, being creative. I love those moments when you're trapped into something beautiful. Yeah, when we are being creative, we feel like we're in a zone, and we're focused, and we're just spending time in that space. And then before we know it, the time just flies by. As I'm looking at the time now, it's 12:52. I'm like, oh, this is how I can tell that this is my creative zone as well, that I've been doing this video for about an hour. I don't know if it shows me. And I mean, I can keep going, but for the sake of time for everyone, and allowing everybody else to, yeah, it says an hour, allowing everybody else to watch this video, or maybe even to rewatch it, or at least the beginning, where the part that you missed, that the shorter it is, the more people can watch it and tune into it. Because these videos that I do, no matter what video, whether it's Mondays or Tuesday or Thursday that I do, or even the podcast that Bethany and I do, they're practically workshops or a mastermind class where there's so much information that I fire hose you with, and that you can learn a great deal from that and then do something with it. Yeah, so other than that, I'll stop right here. Thank you everybody for being live on here with me. Some of you weren't here with me for the whole entire time, and some hopped on throughout, and some hopped off. We all got things that we gotta do, and make sure that we get all these things done in our day-to-day life. That's why it's important to be intentional with our day and structure our days. This is what I'm gonna do. Yana's live video coming. I do live Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time ish. It's anywhere between 11:30 or 11:40, sometimes a little bit earlier, depending on what's happening in my day. So if this is what you want to make sure that you attend, all of these masterminds, all of these workshops, quote unquote, then make sure you put that into your calendar, into your day, into your planner, or into your device, to remind you to be here and carve out that time for yourself. And I typically try not to go over an hour for myself and for everybody else. But other than that, that's all I have for you guys for today. Hopefully this was helpful. If you find this helpful and these types of videos, then we probably can't share it from here, but when I do upload it to a podcast, you can share from the podcast or invite some of your friends into this group as well. And that's it. That's all I have for you guys for today. Looking forward to seeing you all on Monday for my live card reading at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time ish. And until then, bye everybody. Thanks for being on here with me. And until then, bye. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's not too cold or snowy. Bye.